Hello, my name is Luis Gonzalez, and you're about to witness my Quarter 2 Leadership Project on personal leadership. I decided that for my Quarter 2 project, I could try to build and sustain relationships that I felt needed more attention. I recently attended a leadership conference at Logan High School, where I learned how to build and sustain relationships. I chose 4 people who I believed I could build my relationship with. I chose these people specifically because I felt they had different levels of friendship with me. I welcome you to join me on my Quarter 2 Leadership Project. For the last 2 weeks, I've been trying to improve my relationship with 4 different people who I felt had different levels of friendship with me. One of which who I thought we were kind of acquaintances, almost friends. One of which who I thought we were friends. One of which who I thought we were close friends, and one who is my best friend. My acquaintance will be known as friend 1. My friend will be known as friend 2. My close friend will be known as friend 3. And my best friend will be known as friend 4. For this project, I made a list of things that I felt I needed to do in order to build our relationship. My first order of business was to ask the participants a couple questions on how they feel about our relationship. How would you currently describe our relationship? I gave them some examples they could use to describe our relationship. No relationship, acquaintance, friend, close friend, and somewhere in between if they wanted to. Next question was, do you think our relationship can be improved upon? If so, how? The final question was, what is the most important part of a relationship to you? And then I gave some examples. Care, devotion, humor. If the participant felt that it was important in a relationship, I asked them to tell me. I tried to do my best to thank this person for as much as possible. So right after I asked them the questions, I said, oh, thanks for participating, blah, 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 blah. One of the things that the workshop covered is that to build a relationship, you need to thank this person for everything. Even if it's something they do on a daily basis, it's important to people that they're recognized for their work. My third job was to ask the participant for something. And I know this sounds kind of strange. My goal here was that to show them that I depend on them in some way, but also to give me another opportunity to thank them. My next step was to talk to the participants whenever I get the chance, and to show them that I've been going out of my way to talk to them. My next step was to do something for the participants. This step was a little more difficult because it kind of relied on the participant to go out of their way to talk to me. These questions included, how would you currently describe our relationship? And it's the same examples. And my final question was, if behavior I have been demonstrating in the last 2 weeks continues, do you think our relationship can improve? I'm going to start off with friend number 4, or my best friend. I hypothesized for this friend that I could not improve our relationship that much due to the time constraints. Friend number 4's answer to the first question was very close friends, which is just what I predicted, higher than the examples that I gave. Friend number 4's answer to the second question was yes, if we went to the same school, which was not going to happen. But I totally agree. If we spent 7 hours a day together, then our relationship would definitely improve. Friend number 4's answer to the final question was humor, common interests. I asked him to expand upon this, and he said that since we have so many common interests, was probably one of the main reasons we're such close friends. Next, I asked friend 4 for something. I asked friend 4 if he wanted to hang out that weekend. Of course, he said yes, but since I was too late on negotiating the times, it turns out he couldn't make it. But it was okay because I ended up FaceTiming him for about an hour, just talking about how he was doing. I tried my best to thank friend 4 for everything he had been doing for me. Friend 4 was probably the easiest person to do something for. Well, he said, oh, you should download this game so that we can play together. Can you download this game? Friend 4 also asked if I could start watching Stranger Things, which I was already interested in watching. Friend 4's answer for the first one didn't change. For the second one, he said that no, I had been a fine person for him in the last 2 weeks. And for the last question, he said, probably. Friend number 4 said probably because he felt as if since we're so close and getting together would only be on the weekends and during breaks, it would be harder for us to build our relationship much further, but he agreed that the behavior I'd been demonstrating was definitely on the right path to improving it. If you noticed a change in quality recently in the video, it's because I just switched to a professional camera as opposed to my iPhone. Anyways, let's continue. For friend 3, I felt like I had a little bit of a falling out with. This relationship was definitely one that I felt needed attention if I wanted it to succeed. His answer to the first question was close friend, which was exactly where I put him on my chart too. His answer to the second question was yes, our relationship could improve if we hung out more. Recently, I think that he felt that I had been avoiding hanging out with him, and by hanging out with him more, I felt that we could totally improve our relationship. His answer to the last question was the most important part of a relationship is humor and understanding. This friend is super funny, and humor is a big part of our relationship. He always wants to be understood, and he also always wants to understand things as well. So what I asked him for was I asked him if he wanted to hang out. This was one of the things that he thought would improve our relationship. I felt that if I tie in asking him for something and improving our relationship, it could be kind of like two birds with one stone. So what he asked me to do was to update him about what happened at Moreau so he could comment and like think about it, because like I said earlier, he loves to understand things, especially when it comes to like people's lives. So for the final questions, his first answer was still close friends, which totally makes sense because just one hangout session does not improve our relationship like a lot. And since close friends is so high on the list already, it would be hard to get it further. His answer to the second question was no, that I had been a good person to him, and I think the reason he said that was because I asked him if he wanted to hang out, and because I told him so much about my life, which it seemed like he really wanted to know about. His answer to the final question was, yes, he thought that our relationship could improve, and I totally agree. I feel like this relationship is almost in like a vulnerable point, where it's at a low, but we can bring it to a high if we really try. And especially now that winter break's coming up, I think this is a good chance for me to improve our relationship. For friend number 2, I felt that we were somewhat close. We share some classes together and we share similar interests. Although I've only known him for a few months, I still feel like our relationship is pretty strong. His answer to the first question was in between friend and close friend, which I totally agree with. His answer to the second question was he liked the place that our friendship was at, but he also thought that we could hang out a little more. His answer to the third question was care, love, and trust, which is a lot what the workshop that I went to covered. So the thing I asked from him was, I asked him for math notes and bio notes if I needed any, and I always went out of my way to like see if I could talk to him, especially at school, but also over text when I'm at home. The great part of friend 2 was that eventually he actually started going out of his way to talk to me. At one point, I felt that our relationship was really, really growing. In most cases, I found it pretty difficult to get the participants to ask something of me, and with friend number 2, he asked me without even having to prompt him with anything. He said, I won't be able to make it to a class this day, and I offered to take notes for him, and he said, oh yeah, that would be great. Now his answer to the first one was he felt that our relationship was closer than it was before, and I totally agree. His answer to the second question was no, that I was being a fine person to him. Finally, for the last question, he said that if I kept on demonstrating the same behavior, that we could become really close friends, and I agree. Finally, friend number 1. For friend number 1, I felt like we were acquaintances just because we only had one full class together. Even though we shared similar classes, we didn't actually have them at the same time, and also, we shared similar interests, but we never really got to talking to them. I felt like the strategies that I used to build our relationship were probably not as cemented as I did when I tested them with friend 2. So her answer to the first question was in between acquaintances and friends. Her answer to the second question was yes, that we could improve our relationship, and she brought up the same points, that since we only have like one full class together, those are really the only chances we get to talk. And her answer to the final question was the most important part of a relationship is honesty, always having someone's back, and humor. So the thing that I asked this person for, again, was kind of weak compared to the other ones. I just asked if they could share a doc with me. Again, I want to remind you that these strategies I was using for her were a little more experimental than the more cemented ones I used for friend number 2, 3, and 4. I made sure to consistently check up on her, but in retrospect, I noticed that at some points I felt like I was almost being too friendly, that it seemed fake. This was definitely the hardest person to get to ask me for something. I went to a point where I just basically asked them, it's like, oh, do you recommend anything on Netflix? And they recommended Stranger Things. This totally matched up with friend number 4's suggestion, so I decided to watch the first episode and told them how I feel about it the next day. What I noticed with this relationship was towards the end of the last week, we actually started having better conversations that went more back and forth than as they felt earlier, when they felt more forced and fake. And when we did have our class together, we actually had something to talk about. And I think that our relationship definitely improved. Her answer to the final questions were, she felt that we were friends, which was higher than what she originally graded, which was in between acquaintance and friends, which is not by that much, but I still feel like she thinks that our relationship improved. The answer to the second question was that no, she felt that I had been a fine person to her over the last 2 weeks. And for the final question, she answered, yes, that if I keep on demonstrating this type of behavior, we can totally improve our relationship. The relationship that I felt I improved the least was with friend number 4. I think that for friend number 3, I had the third most growth in relationship. The next most improved relationship was probably with friend number 1. I feel like the relationship that grew the most was probably with friend number 2. Him and I just totally bonded, and it was not towards the end of the last week, but like almost like right in the middle of the 2 weeks where our relationship like clearly started to grow. What I've learned from this was that you really need to be genuine when building a relationship. You can't be fake, and you need to show that you really care about this person. One of the best ways to show you care about this person is showing them that you trust them. Trust seemed to be a huge part in almost every single person. Friend 1, 2, and 3 all felt that trust was really important to them in a relationship. Really, the only way to get someone to trust you is to trust them first. So show that you trust someone, and they'll trust you back. Your relationship will grow and definitely be healthy. So in conclusion, I found that if you really want to build a relationship, you really need to take your time, be genuine, be trustworthy, and show that you care. Thank you so much for joining me on my Quarter 2 project.